Sajan, it's great to have you and to speak to you again. It's a pleasure. Thank you so much for making to this webinar, and I'm hoping Troy would be with us soon as well. Um,
Sure. Thank
okay,
you for
I
having me
think
here. Hello, everyone.
people are also in. They're eagerly waiting to hear about the topic that we have in place today. It's a very interesting topic, something that's also close to my heart about building teams uh, and building and scaling teams, a formidable team. So we have a really interesting topic that I would love to get thoughts from both Troy and yourself. Uh, yeah, and just to get some context, right? Like building any kind of team is not easy. From hiring to managing, ensuring their goals are met, it can make any leader's uh, head spin. Uh, right, retaining, it's not just hiring, but then hiring is just the start of the journey with them. Retaining them, motivating them, scaling it efficiently can be the real difference for a company. And in security, especially, a formidable team would just be the saving grace for a company, especially growing in the limelight. And it's so very important to make sure that you're choosing the right set of people in the right set of ways at the right stage to ensure that your company and your function is successful. On that note, what I want to do is get into a conversation and get your thoughts on some of the thoughts on how should one think about, how should security leaders think about building and scaling a formidable team. Let me start with this. Uh, a very pertinent question, uh, common across functions, any function that you want to build. Typically, what kind of budgets or what percentage of budgets have you seen that is allocated in to building a team for the security org of the function?
Uh, Thank you for having me here, Pritesh, again. And this is a very interesting question, but at the same time, it also depends on the organization.
Mhm.
I do not think there is a hard and fast rule about the budget on the talent budget because it depends on like what type of automation you have in place, what is in-house function versus outsourced function. But in general, we do see in the financial industries at least 8 to 10% of the technology budget aligned to the security of an organization. But again, that is not hard and fast, but that's it. Like generally, we do see that in the data from Gartner's and others.
Right. Yeah, I think that's fairly consistent also with the conversation that I have with CISOs across the board. They seem to claim it's somewhere between 6 to 10, depending on the industry, the size of the org that you are in. But yeah, that's a good starting point, at least for uh, people to start thinking about what kind of budgets can they play around with while building a team. Uh, on that note, uh, who is the when you're starting out, who is the typical first hire uh, in the security function?
Uh, yes, again, a lot of it depends on the priority and focus areas. However, I do consider three instead of one. Three is like in a generic sense, right? The technology view and planning, business view and planning, and risk view and planning. So technology, business, and the risk. From that angle, I would start with the technology architect or the security architect, and then all who will give me the technical view of security and help me define one, and then risk analyst who would give me the risk view of the things, and business information security manager in some organizations they call it business information security officer who would give me the business view of the things because as a CISO I'm responsible for managing the technology, risk, and the business. So these three would give me a good sense of how to manage, prioritize the things, and so on.
Got it. Thanks, Arjun. That's very helpful. Maybe let's say you're still in a small and medium sized business. and you need to take a hard decision of if you have to choose between the three, which is the first one that's definitely something that you would hire without flinching an eye.
Yeah, I would, because if you had asked me this question a couple of years back, I would have said definitely security architect. But now, as CISO managing a whole lot of the risk functionality of the thing, now if I have to pick between the three, I think I would go with risk analyst. But again, it depends on the maturity of the organization, the priorities, and all those things. So I do not think there's a hard and fast rule. But if I have to just pick one, I would go with the risk analyst.
Got it. That's very interesting. What's prompted this change in thought for you from a technical architect to now picking a risk analyst?
Yes, because if you look at it, the whole overall uh, industry landscape, and all the things that's going on, one of the biggest risk any organization faces is related to the information security or the cyber risk. If you do not have that view, you may not be able to prioritize your programs accurately. So the CISO is not simply a technology function anymore. It is a risk function, and then also helping with the new transformation and all those things going on. It is also the business enabler of the things.
Got it. That's very helpful to know how the role of CISO itself has transformed. Let me just take a step back and throw this to you. What do you think has traditionally, or even especially now, do you anticipate as the biggest challenge in building a security team from scratch? And what would you take into consideration when building a security team?
Yes, there are a lot of things. It's a loaded question, but the first and the foremost is finding good cybersecurity talent. We all know about it, so I do not think that needs any repetition. The second is, even if you find those talents, it is very expensive. The cost of onboarding as well as the pay scale and everything. It's a very competitive market. So those are the two things. With that, we have to be a bit creative. And there are a lot of avenues out there. First, one, don't focus too much on a degree. Hiring simply based on a degree is a lazy approach. Go beyond that. Second, look beyond technology background. We need a problem solver, and there are a lot of people in different disciplines who would help us solve the problems. There are a lot of mature industries or the practices out there we can learn from. Third is provide apprentice opportunities. And when you provide these opportunities, do not target people who are already concentrated, so already the mainstream, right? Because many times this apprenticeship program target people who are already in the technology, already in bachelor's degree engineering and computer science. Why don't we target community college, high school students? Target early, right? Because we have seen that in good examples is in Israel. They do start at the high school. They are getting a lot good talents out there. Uh, and the fourth, very important one is automation of repetitive and mundane tasks. You do not want to build talent or onboard a talent and then have them work on a very repetitive and mundane task. So think about the automation and how we can move the resources to do the non-automated work. So more like analyst work, those so on and so forth.
Got it. That's the reality of today, and I'm really great that you brought it up. Two things especially stuck out to me. The first, you cannot survive without automation. You need tools and automation to really scale any team. It's not just security, but any team in an org. The second, I really love the apprentice approach to building things, because that helps you build, test it out, and build bottoms up, and get really groom people into the roles that you would like them to have. Uh, so great thought around it. Just to follow on to that, what according to you, let's say you built out a team, imagine a couple of years, and you've done this over and over again. But let's say if from today, uh, you built out a scalable security team, what would that typical org structure of a security team look like? What are those different functions, sub functions within that, and the roles within them? What would that look like?
Yeah, it also depends on the organization, right? That's the caveat there. But in any security organization, you need to think about risk management function, security architecture and engineering function, right? Security operations function, which includes monitoring portion of it. More often than not, threat intelligence and incident response function. Now, as CISO or the security organization has the comprehensive view across the organization, more often than not, even the business continuity thing. Because if you look at the whole spectrum of things, business continuity depends on security, and security depends on business continuity. So also take that structure in hand, right? So that is one. So that's the core team, and then distributed team, like almost like a federated model, right? The product security, because if you are introducing a new product, how are you securing those products, right? You are in a lot of organizations. We are also going into the hybrid mode, master cloud, but still in a legacy program. There are so many on-prem on-prem applications. How do we secure that? And how do we secure the interactions of on-prem and the cloud applications? So we do need the product team focusing on that one as well. And the most important one after that is the data security, right? Because we are in the data business. If we do not have the data security function, I don't think any organization can survive for long.
That's so true. Just a curious question. Like, at what stage or when do you think would you have a function like GRC into the security org?
A GRC can be directly owned within the security org, or GRC could be a shared function with the enterprise risk management, right? Because security manages the governance, risk, and compliance for certain areas. But GRC is, or integrated risk management, this is the newer evolution of it, is bigger than information security. There may be a lot of other operational aspect that is captured on the GRC, but not directly in information security. So that is, I believe, is a shared responsibility. I
Got
do
it.
not think there's any hard and fast rule on that one. But there's one thing that I want to come back to on the earlier questions, right? We discussed about building like skills and all those things. Now, I want to differentiate between the education and skills in information security talent, or when we build the talent. We do need both, right? But those are not the same thing. When you go to a college or go to the degree program, you may be educated, or one may be educated, but that does not mean that person does have the skills required to do the job on a day one. At the same time, we do need the skills, right, to do the job. Now, to build that person, to grow that person may need some of like broader perspective on things, the horizontal knowledge and all those things. For that, the person needs to like having education helps there. So this is not a replacement of one versus another, but if I have to pick between education and skills on onboarding, I would pick skills over education, but help build the education afterwards.
Oh, yeah, that's so powerful, and so aptly put. If you have the skills, you can always train people on that, on any specific domain, as long as they carry the right set of skills. So insightful. Thank you so much for that, Sajan. On that note, in fact, I had something as a follow-on to the structure of a security org. There are so many roles within the security org, and if you have all the resources and bandwidth, you're going to build a full-fledged team out. Uh, However, there are certain functions which always play under the radar and yet are very critical to ensure the stability of security function as a whole. So according to you, which security leaders are truly underrated, yet they are vital for the leaders to prioritize and consider?
Yeah, there are a couple, right? One is because security is involved in so many things, the project and portfolio management within information security is kind of underrated. That's my belief because so many things happen and it's a juggling act, prioritization act, but we do not talk about prioritization program portfolio manager within the information security as much. So that is one. Another is more often than not, now we do see a lot of this data analysis required within the information security, right? Because we do have a big volume of data. We need somebody has to go through that, clean up, create these rule sets, kind of like you call it like engineering function, detection engineering function, intelligence gathering functions that does require building the data set, creating the rules. I don't think we do talk about that enough. Those are, I do think, too underrated.
Wow, that's so true. I'm very curious to learn about the first one, the program management bit. Can you tell us a little bit more about that role?
Yes. Yeah, of course. I mean, that is an area of my interest as well, right? So let's think about it. Three priorities or three competing priorities, I would say: business enablement, risk, and the technology. Now, this portfolio program management would help prioritize based on the need. Sometimes, like, it's a juggling act, uh, three balls in the air at the same time. Now, how do you expedite something? What do you want to put in the back burner and then change the burner again, right? So that is where this portfolio manager or the project manager would help us accomplish. Because when I look at my portfolio of the things, my priorities, I was like, oh, it was my priority a month earlier. But guess what? Something happened. Something happened in the external, something happened in the internal. Now I need to juggle my priorities there. And this position, this person would help me that.
Got it. Yeah, so true, especially as the organization gets more and more complex and bigger. Uh, Keeping a second eye always helps to ensure the team is focused on the goals always. Yeah. Awesome. We've talked about how what are the roles and what does an org look like, and who should you hire. Uh, we've talked about the journey of scaling, but let's say you have reached certain scale as part of as part of the security team. Uh, how do you manage them? How do you ensure they stay with you, they retain with you, and continue to deliver on the goals? Any tips, any
Yeah,
strategies
it is
that you
a first is like, yeah, it's a incentive, right? The incentive, not just the monetary incentive, but the challenge and make them feel valued, right? So those are the ones that, yeah, of course, there's a monetary incentive, but the others is the challenge of the work itself. That is one. I mean, I think that's the biggest one. And then give them what the future may look like. So giving them a view of like, hey, where are they heading? Why is their job very important? Give them some kind of career pathway and how to achieve those. I think that's a continuous learning approach that we need to provide if we need somebody to stay with us for a long time.
got it? Uh, yeah, you know, I'm going to change the track a little bit and ask something which is relevant for today. We are all seeing tough times, uncertain times, to be honest, right? There are multiple crises unfolding at the same time. Given this situation, what would your advice be to security leaders or budding security leaders on how should they build a team? What are the roles that they should consider? Uh, how should they just be thinking about building a team in this environment?
I mean, as I said before, those are the three areas, right? Uh, Thinking in terms of the risk, business enablement, and the technology. The fourth one is have a really good understanding of your business resiliency or business continuity program. Because sooner or later, you may have to use that, right? Hopefully, touch wood, you do not have to do that in a big catastrophic fashion. But even the minor incident, if you do have a good structure of your business resiliency program, that would make your job very easy. So you do see more business resiliency, business continuity aligned with the CISO organization these days.
Got it. Yeah, I think that's helpful. One last question, and then we'll go enter into the Q&A, and I'm going to probably put you on the spot with this one. Feel
Yeah,
free to
sure.
choose to not answer. But
Okay.
you've worked for enough organizations, you've seen enough organizations themselves and security teams. Without naming anyone, if you had to say certain roles that you think existed within an org, uh, but really should not have been, uh, what would those roles be?
Nothing jumps off. Um, yeah. So this is the question that I'm not going to answer. So, again, because I do not know the answer to that.
Got it. No worries. Again, this was blind. The question is blind. Okay, I think we're almost at the clock. We can go into the Q&A. I see there is a question by Akshaj. What would be the recommended apprenticeship or online programs that you would recommend someone?
Um, Within the United States, there are few that is like even funded by Department of Labor, but the apprenticeship program itself is administered through different entities. There are some examples. I mean, at least in Arkansas, there is one called ACDS that is in partnership with Forge Institute. They do a really good apprenticeship program. Uh, I'm pretty sure there are a lot out there. Um,
Are there any recommended platforms that, one or two that you can name?
I mean, a Cybrary has a lot of the tools or the learning thing. Coursera is a good one, but of course, those are not apprenticeship. Those are more like a training platform. But for apprenticeship, there are way out there. Just I do not remember any names on top of my head other than the ACDS and Force Institute.
No worries. I think that's helpful. Hopefully, Akshar, that helps you in your search. Okay. Let me see if Aarti is going to come stage, and yeah, there she is.
Yes, yes. I first want to say, Troy is so sorry he's not able to join in. There were some, we know that we are dealing with security leaders and great amount of security firewalls when you're not able to get into a website for the first time. So I'm sorry about that. But he really wanted to join in, and he hoped that you guys had an extremely insightful conversation. I'm just going to add his email. So if you want to reach out to him, and if you have any questions to ask, please feel free to reach out and get in touch with him. But on the whole, I hope you had a great conversation. Thank you, Sajan. Thanks, Pritesh, for taking this up. And Sajan, thanks for taking up all the questions. And I saw that it was extremely insightful as well. And looking at the comments, I know that people had a good time and they learned from it. If any of you want to get in touch, I will be sharing their LinkedIn profiles and emails, so you can reach out to them. And if you want to understand how InfoSec compliances can be a superpower, please reach out to feel free to book a call on the banner to your right, or you can get in touch at sales@sprinto.com. And that's about it. Have a nice day and take care. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for having me
Thank you,
here.
Sajan.